Hello everyone, today we're diving into something that hits a little too close to home. What happens when you get older and your own kids start ignoring you? Not slamming doors or throwing tantrums like they did as teenagers. No, this is different. This is quiet. This is subtle. They walk past you like you're a lamp they never turn on anymore. You say their name, and they answer with a if they even answer at all. You're not imagining it. And yeah, you'd probably lose your mind if you thought this only happened to other people. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me where you're watching from. Drop your city and time zone in the comments. Now calm down, turn on the fan for some soothing white noise, and let's begin today's journey of listening and healing together. You remember the chair in the living room? Beige fabric, a little worn out, cushion on the right side sunk in just enough to tell a story. That used to be your chair. The one where you read the Sunday paper or maybe just sat thinking. It's still there. But somehow it's become invisible. No one says, "Hey Dad, sit here," or "Mom, what are you watching?" That chair is now part of the background, and you feel like part of it too. You try joining a conversation, slipping in a comment, but your voice doesn't seem to go past the TV noise. Sometimes you even cough on purpose, just to see if someone will look up. They don't. They scroll, swipe, laugh at videos. You sit quietly, a former lead character who's somehow been written into the credits as silent extra. Neuroscientists have shown that the human brain starts tuning out sounds that repeat over time, like the hum of the AC or a ticking clock. And sadly, in many homes, the older parent becomes that background hum. Always there, rarely noticed. Here's a weird fact. There's a frog in South America that literally plays dead when it feels threatened. It doesn't move, doesn't blink, just pretends it doesn't exist until the danger passes. And the sad thing is, you might be doing that too, pretending to be fine, pretending it doesn't sting, pretending you don't need them to see you. Experts still argue over this, whether younger generations are just selfish or simply lacking intergenerational communication skills. But whatever the reason, you feel it. No study needed. You start noticing the small things. How they walk in the house and don't even ask where you are. How you hear the engine start and the car leave without a single goodbye. Even the cat looks at you longer than your own kids do. And the irony? You bought that chair. You used to clean that living room every morning. Now you sit in it, and the whole room seems to move around you like you're not even there. But you are there. You chose to be there. You haven't left yourself yet. Not completely. Let's imagine something, just for a second. If being ignored was a meal, it'd be like cold pancakes, floppy, tasteless, and nobody even cares to add syrup. But you still sit there waiting for someone to pull up a chair and join you. You wonder if maybe you said, "Don't forget your jacket" too many times, or "Why are you home so late?" You start blaming yourself for caring too much, for reaching out, for trying to stay connected. And somehow that makes you think the only way to be seen is to disappear. But don't. Don't pull away from yourself. Don't close the book halfway through the chapter. That chair may have become invisible to them, but it's still solid, beneath you. And you're still here, still real. That presence, that quiet being, is the foundation of what comes next. You're not going to demand attention. You're not going to shout to be heard. You're going to begin a new kind of journey, one that's calm, intentional, and deeply you. Let me tell you what happens next, because every healing journey starts in a forgotten chair, but chairs can be reupholstered, and you can shine, just not in the way anyone expects. Let's keep going. You wake up earlier than usual. Not because you want to, but because there's nothing waiting for you later. No, Dad, can you help me move this? No, Mom, can you come to my recital? You check your phone. Nothing. No texts, no missed calls. Not even a good morning in the family group chat. You start to wonder if the phone's broken. Maybe the Wi-Fi's out. So you test it. Open the weather app. It loads. The silence is real. You shuffle toward the mailbox like a character in a black and white movie. You already know it's empty, but you go anyway. Because there's a strange hope that maybe someone remembered. A birthday card. A handwritten note. A bill addressed to current resident still counts as interaction, right? And yet, nothing. You stare into that metal box like it's a portal to the past. Remember when your kids used to draw pictures and leave them under your door? Now, they leave nothing. Not even crumbs. You head back inside, phone in hand, holding it like a pet that won't come when called. You scroll through old messages, rereading texts from years ago, just to hear their voice again. Pathetic? Maybe. Human? Absolutely. Psychologists call it social neglect, and it activates the same part of the brain as physical pain. That's right. Being emotionally ignored lights up your brain like someone punched you. Hard. And here you are, punched daily, but with a smile. Fun fact, pigeons can recognize themselves in mirrors. They know when they're being watched. But you? You're beginning to feel like you've disappeared entirely, even from yourself. You dial their number, just to check in. No answer. You try again, maybe with a different kid this time. Voicemail. You try once more, just to be sure. Still nothing. The phone feels heavier with each attempt, like it's absorbing the weight of your disappointment. Experts still debate whether this kind of disconnection is part of modern adulthood or a breakdown of family culture. But let's be real, you're not part of their calendar anymore. You're a footnote at best. So you set the phone down, not in frustration, just quietly, like placing a seashell on a windowsill. Maybe someone will pick it up. Maybe not. You start noticing the ambient noises in your house more. The hum of the fridge. The creak of the, stairs. The way the heater clicks just before it kicks in. These are the only things responding to you these days. And weirdly, they feel more loyal than your own flesh and blood. It's easy to take this personally. And honestly, you wouldn't be wrong. But here's the thing. They might not even realize they're doing it. In their mind, silence means everything's fine. No news is good news. They think of you as strong, independent, always there. But silence is not nothing. It's a language, and yours is screaming. You want to yell, "What happened to us?" But instead you microwave a leftover casserole and eat in silence. You want to type, "Miss you," in a text, but you delete it. You want to remind them of who you were. But you're afraid they've already replaced that version of you with someone quieter, smaller. You know what's funny? You've become too safe, too stable, like a savings bond. Reliable, but no one's checking in on it until they need it. And yet you're still holding space, still there, still hoping for a ring, a ding, a knock at the door. You don't even need a full conversation. A meme would do. A thumbs up emoji. Even LOL would feel like a lifeline. You want to ask, how did I go from being the center of their world to being a side character they skip over? But here's what you do now. You stop chasing noise. Because eventually, even the most silent house starts to echo. And when it does, when your stillness grows louder than their absence, they'll notice. Not because you yelled, but because you didn't. So next time you check your phone and see no messages, breathe. Walk outside, feel the sun even if it's weak. Sip your coffee like it matters. Because it does. You do. The mailbox will be empty again tomorrow. So what? You're not waiting there. You're building something else now. Something they'll hear when the silence finally breaks. And that's your new message. One that doesn't need Wi-Fi or delivery confirmation. Keep going. The next time you see them, it's not even because they wanted to. It's a holiday. Maybe Thanksgiving. Maybe Christmas. You're not sure if they came for you or for the food. Or maybe just because their partner told them it would be rude not to. You open the door. You smile. You say, "Hey, there you are." They nod, half hug. Their phone is already in one hand, and you know you have about 45 minutes before they start glancing at the time, pretending they forgot something. You ask how they're doing. They say, "Busy." You ask if work is okay. They say, "Yeah." You ask if they're still taking those evening classes or volunteering at that shelter or whatever it was they once cared about. They shrug. Not really. You hear yourself say, because there's nothing else left to say, and you notice it, how the energy in the room shifts. They're not here to connect. They're here to clock in, check the box. Visited the parents. You've become a task, not a person. Meanwhile, your casserole is perfect, but no one asks for seconds. The salad you made with lemon vinaigrette like they used to love? Barely touched. You even tried plating the cranberry sauce into a little maple leaf shape. No one noticed. Not even a, "That's cute, Mom." Instead, they talk about memes you haven't seen. Trends you don't understand, shows you don't watch. You sit there nodding, smiling, pretending you're with it. But you feel like a guest at a party you weren't actually invited to. Here's something wild. Octopuses have been observed throwing things, shells, rocks, when they're annoyed. Scientists still argue about whether that counts as emotional expression. But if an octopus can express its mood by chucking a shell across the reef, surely you're allowed to feel frustrated without being labeled too sensitive. Because here's the thing, they don't even know they're hurting you. To them, you're background comfort, like a favorite sweatshirt they left at your house years ago. They know it's there. They just don't reach for it anymore. And so, you clean up the dishes while they scroll through their phones. You tell them to leave the plates, but part of you hopes they'll insist. They don't. The sink fills with warm water, and you wonder why it's only the bubbles that feel. Close to you right now, you hear them laughing in the other room. Not at your jokes, not with you, just near you. Close enough to echo, far enough to miss. Psychologists call this emotional proximity illusion, when physical presence makes people assume emotional connection still exists. But it doesn't. They're right there. But you're not with them. You glance at the clock. They've been here 37 minutes. You already know it's ending. You hear one of them say, "We should get going soon." They don't ask to stay longer. They don't say they wish they had more time. They just gather their things like the house was a layover, not a destination. You walk them to the door. You say, "Drive safe." They say, "Thanks for dinner." Not, "Love you." Not, "Let's talk soon." Just, "Thanks." You close the door. You don't cry. You don't rage. You just exhale, like the house is letting out air with you, and then you do something new. You sit down, not in that same chair, but in a different spot. A new corner. You light a candle. Not because you're sad, because you're marking something. A line in the quiet. A beginning. You realize something. You can't make them care. But you can care differently. Care for yourself. Without waiting for proof that someone else will show up. Because the truth is, you've been trying to host a party in a room no one walks into. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to throw a different kind of party. One where you're the guest of honor. One where you don't cook for people who don't show up. One where you sit in your own light, not waiting for someone else to flip the switch. Let them leave early. Let them forget the sauce. Let them scroll. You are still here, and the candle flickers a little stronger. Next time, let's talk about what happens after the holiday silence. Because you're not shrinking. You're just starting to shift. The next morning, you wake up and don't check your phone. Not because you forgot, because you chose not to. Instead, you sit by the window, with your coffee, no sugar, just the bitterness, the kind that wakes you up and reminds you that you're still very much alive. You let the sunlight hit your face, and for the first time in weeks, you don't shrink from the silence. You sit in it. You let it be company instead of punishment. Because here's what no one tells you. Loneliness doesn't always sound like tears. Sometimes it sounds like toast popping up with no one there to eat it with you, and yet you're still hungry. That's a good sign. You walk around the house, not cleaning, not fixing, just seeing. The frames on the wall with their baby pictures. The backpack still hanging on the hook, even though they moved out 3 years ago. The birthday card you kept from the time they actually remembered. Everything in the house remembers you, even if they don't seem to. You notice the echo of your own footsteps. It used to bother you. Now, it feels like applause. One person clapping is still clapping. Want to know something weird? In Japan, there's a forest called Aokigahara, where people go to disappear. But what researchers found is that most of them bring something that reminds them of being found. A letter, a photo, a charm. Even in our darkest thoughts, we want to be remembered. You realize you haven't disappeared. You've just been waiting for someone else to notice you're still here. And today, you start noticing yourself again. You open the kitchen drawer and find that old sketchbook, the one you kept telling yourself you'd get back to once things slowed down. Well, guess what? Things are slow now. You grab a pencil, you sketch the mug in front of you. It's lopsided, shaky, but it's yours. Neuroscientists say using your hands activates different parts of the brain linked to memory and joy. Even if what you make is ugly, even if no one claps, the brain doesn't care, it just wants you to try. You sketch another cup, better this time, a little, and you laugh, because who knew sadness could have good shading? You still haven't checked your phone. That's not neglect. That's power. You realize this thing you've been doing, waiting by the digital door for a knock that never comes, it's not helping. It's hurting. You've trained your nervous system to expect disappointment, and your body responds. Tight chest, dry throat, clenched jaw, all because someone didn't text you back. Experts still debate whether emotional abandonment is trauma or just part of aging. But let me tell you, your nervous system doesn't care what the label is. It just knows something feels wrong. So today you do something radical. You turn the phone off. Not silence, not do not disturb. Off, and the quiet. It's deafening, but it's also clean. You go outside. The sun is warm, in that barely hanging on to spring kind of way. The neighbor's dog barks. You wave, the mailman passes. You say hi. He says it back. Connection, tiny, real. You sit on the porch and sip your coffee again. Cold now. Doesn't matter. You're not drinking it for taste anymore. You're drinking it for presence. Because here's the truth. You were never invisible. You were just standing in the wrong light. You spent so long trying to stay relevant to people who think of you as an old notification, seen but not opened. It's time to stop begging for replies and start building your own signal. And guess what? That signal doesn't have to be loud, it just has to be steady. A morning sketch. A walk without your phone. A dinner you cook just for yourself, with the good plates, not the chipped ones. Because you deserve your own attention, not someday, now. So keep going. The silence, it's not empty. It's just waiting to be filled with you. You used to wonder if it was just you, if maybe you were too dramatic, too sensitive, too in your head. But today, sitting on that porch with your second cup of coffee, which by the way still tastes like burnt hope, you realize something profound. It's not just you. It's a generation. It's a pattern. See, we built our lives like safety nets for our children. We were the backup plan, the emergency contact, the voice at the other end of the 3 a.m. phone call. But somewhere along the way, that reliability became invisibility. You think back, remember when you were their age? You didn't call your parents every day either. But here's the difference. You knew they weren't alone. They had each other, or neighbors they actually spoke to, or friends who showed up without texting first. Now, you've got your plants, and even they seem distant. There's a term for this. Sociologists call it generational dislocation. It's what happens when emotional expectations clash with modern communication norms. In short, you want a conversation, they want a meme. You want a visit, they send a GIF. Here's a weird fact. Jellyfish don't have hearts or brains, and yet they survive just fine floating in open water. And some of your kids, they float just like that, drifting in their lives. No anchor, no awareness of who's holding the shore for them. You catch yourself laughing at your own bitterness. It bubbles up like soda that's been shaken too long. I raise jellyfish, you mutter, and then chuckle because it's not entirely untrue. But bitterness doesn't age well. You can't let it sit too long or it sours everything else. So, what do? You start shifting the lens. Instead of asking, why don't they call? You start asking, what do I need that I'm not giving myself? You know you want connection, so you go where connection happens. You sign up for a pottery class. You don't tell anyone. It's your little rebellion. You walk in, and it smells like clay and awkward introductions. But you sit. You try. Your first bowl looks like a melted cereal dish, but it's yours. And here's where the science kicks in. Studies show that learning a new skill over the age of 60 not only boosts memory retention, but can also reduce symptoms of depression by over 30%. That's not magic. That's neuroplasticity. Your brain is literally thanking you for trying. You don't become a ceramic master overnight, but something else starts to form. Conversation. The woman next to you asks how you made your edges so smooth. You tell her it's just decades of cutting crusts off sandwiches. She laughs. You laugh. And for a moment, you're not just mom or dad waiting by a phone. You're you, creative, present, seen. You still think about your kids. Of course you do. But now it's different. You don't build your day around a maybe text. You build your day around movement. Because something clicks. You were waiting to be invited back into their lives like it was a party. But now, you're throwing your own. You go to the library, not to find answers, just to be surrounded by quiet thinking. You walk through the park. You wave at toddlers like some kind of retired magician. You're becoming that person. The one. With a mysterious smile and soft hands, and here's the twist. They will notice. Eventually your kid will text, "Hey, what are you up to?" And instead of replying right away, you'll look at your muddy hands from pottery class and smile. You'll respond when you want to. Not because you're punishing them, but because you're no longer waiting. You're living. Let them feel the distance once in a while. Not because you're gone, but because you're finally full enough not to chase crumbs, and maybe, just maybe, they'll remember that you were more than just a safe place. You were a whole person before they even existed, and now, you're becoming that person again, so let's keep going. The next step? Learning how to hold joy without needing permission, because you've earned it, every quiet inch of it. You walk past the mirror one afternoon and don't look away this time. It startles you a little. Not the reflection, but the fact that you actually pause to see yourself. The person staring back has softer shoulders than, you remember, a little more gravity around the eyes, but there's a steadiness there. You look like someone who's come through something. And let's be honest, you have. It's weird. You've spent years tending to everyone else, being the glue, the planner, the reminder, the silent calendar no one thanked. But now, you're becoming someone centered, not just useful. You tilt your head. You even try a little half smile in the mirror. It doesn't feel fake. It feels like checking in with an old friend you forgot lived there. Want a strange fact? Sea otters hold hands while they sleep so they don't drift apart. No, really. Scientists still study it, not just because it's cute, but because it's one of the few examples of non-sexual touch used purely for emotional security in the animal kingdom. It's their way of saying, "I'm here, I'm still with you." You think about that sometimes. You used to be the hand people held so they didn't float away. But who's been holding you? The silence lately, it's not the same kind of silence as before. It's not hollow, it's not heavy, it's spacious, that's the word. Spacious enough for you to stretch out in it, to move without asking permission. You make your bed, Not because someone's coming over, but because you. Like how the room feels when it's tidy. You light that fancy candle you were saving for guests. You wear the good sweater even though it's just you and the grocery store today. You're learning to treat your life like it matters, even if no one's watching. Because guess what? You're watching. And your approval actually counts. Psychologists call this self-object constancy. It's the ability to hold on to a positive image of yourself even when others aren't reinforcing it. Not everyone has it. But you're growing it. Slowly, steadily, you go out more. Not chasing company, just meeting the world on your own terms. A walk through the farmer's market. A new bookshop that smells like paper and dust and possibilities. You make small. Talk with a barista who draws a smiley face in your foam. Connection doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's just warm foam and a good morning. You get home and there's a voicemail from your daughter. Hey, just checking in. Haven't heard from you in a bit. Hope everything's okay. And this time, you don't rush to call back. You wait. You sit with it. Not because you're playing games, but because you're full. You don't need to fill the silence with proof of your worth. You know your worth. And when you do call back, your voice is calm, warm, solid. You tell her about the farmer's market. You mention a new recipe you want to try. You don't ask why she hasn't called more. You don't sound wounded, you just exist with richness, like a full cup that doesn't slosh every time someone moves. She notices. They always do. Because here's the truth. No one tells you. When you stop chasing people, they start wondering where you went. It's not a punishment. It's a shift. It's gravity, realigned. Scientists still debate whether human connection is more driven by need or novelty. But here's what you've discovered. It doesn't matter. Because you are no longer operating from lack. You're operating from presence, and presence, it's magnetic. You start attracting different conversations, deeper friendships. That one neighbor who waves every morning now walks over with banana bread. Someone in your pottery class invites you for coffee, not out of pity, but out of genuine interest. Because the version of you showing up now is real, grounded, and a little mysterious. You've become the person who has stories that don't include your kids, that used to feel like betrayal. Now it feels like balance. So here's your gentle reminder: you are not shrinking. You are returning to yourself, and you don't have to explain that to anyone. Let them wonder. You've got banana bread to eat, foam art to admire, and a mirror that finally reflects someone you recognize. So, keep going. Next, we'll talk about what happens when you stop waiting for the apology that might never come, and why you don't need it to heal. It always starts the same. You're folding laundry, quietly, mindlessly, when a memory sneaks in like a draft under the door. That one birthday, the forgotten Mother's Day. The way they dismissed your worry with a shrug, like your love was just static in the background, and it hits you again. They never apologized. Not then, not after, maybe not ever. You stop folding. Your hands go still. Your chest tightens. The memory isn't just a thought, it's a felt thing, heavy, like wearing a wet coat indoors. You sit down. Breathe. Remind yourself, this isn't the past happening again. This is just your nervous system running the reruns. Fun fact, The brain can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined memory and something happening in real time. That's why emotional flashbacks are so exhausting. Your body reacts like the disrespect is happening now. And no, you're not overreacting. You're remembering accurately. What you feel is real. But here's where the shift begins. You stop needing an apology to validate that reality. You stop waiting for them to say, "I'm sorry I took you for granted." Because what if they never do? What if they genuinely don't see it? You lean back in your chair and exhale deeply. That kind of exhale that's part surrender, part release. You tell yourself the truth. You don't need them to acknowledge your pain to process it. You need you. There's a word for this. Radical acceptance. It doesn't mean you condone what happened. It means you stop negotiating with reality. You start practicing it in small ways. When a message goes unanswered, you don't spiral. You just note it. You say to yourself, that's what they do. No drama. Just data. And the freedom in that. Enormous. You find yourself walking lighter. Because holding out for closure is like keeping your hand out for a handshake that isn't coming. And you're done standing in that awkward position. You start choosing peace over proof. You journal, just a little. Not the deep, moody kind, but the "what do I feel today" kind. And one morning you write, "I am no longer the version of me they hurt." That hits different. Because it's true. You've changed. You've grown. You've filled in the gaps they left behind. You've made art from the silence. Baked comfort into your routines. You've turned the waiting room into a studio. Biologists still argue whether trauma is better treated through exposure or avoidance. But here's what you've learned. You treat yourself through attention. So you give yourself what they didn't. You say the words out loud. I deserved better. Not for pity, not to guilt them, but because truth-telling is medicine. You even start role-playing apologies in your head, not because you expect them, but because hearing those words, even in your own voice, heals something. I'm sorry I made you feel like you didn't matter. I'm sorry I only called when I needed something. I'm sorry I stopped seeing you as a person. You say them into the mirror, into your tea, into the folds of your sheets. It's weird, a little embarrassing, but it works. You feel something. Shift. Because here's the weird, beautiful twist. Your brain doesn't care if the apology comes from your child, a friend, or your own reflection. It just wants the repair. And you're learning to give that to yourself. You still love them. That doesn't stop. But your love has boundaries now. You no longer hand over your peace like a coupon waiting to be redeemed. You don't perform pain for attention. You own it. Gently. Quietly. Like something precious that made you wiser. And when someone asks how you're doing, you don't flinch. You say, I'm healing. Not perfectly, not all at once, but forward. So if today you feel the ache of what never got said, don't push it down, sit with it, cup it like warm soup in cold hands, then whisper to yourself, I see you, I'm sorry they didn't, but I do, and keep going, because tomorrow we'll talk about how to build joy from scratch. Even if no one joins you at the table. You wake up early one morning, not because you have to, but because you want to. The room is quiet, that kind of soft pre-dawn quiet where even the birds haven't decided what to say yet. You put your feet On the floor, and don't rush. For once, no one needs anything from you. No lunches to pack, no rides to give, just you, and the strange, quiet thrill of owning your morning. You make coffee, real slow, the way you like it. You open a window. Let the breeze in. The air smells like dew and something sweet. Maybe the neighbor's roses, maybe your own hope coming back from vacation. You realize something big. This is your time, not borrowed, not leftover. Yours. And so begins your new experiment. Joy. On purpose. Want to hear a bizarre science fact? Crows can remember human faces for years and even teach their offspring who's trustworthy and who's not. Researchers still debate whether it's emotion or pure memory, but here's what it proves. Even birds know who brings harm and who brings kindness. You think about the faces you've held on to, both the kind ones and the ones that left you feeling invisible. Then you ask yourself, what if you became one of the kind faces in your own story? So you build joy like a muscle. One rep at a time, you start simple. You write down 3 things that made you smile yesterday. The neighbor's crooked mailbox, the squirrel who clearly thinks he's in charge of the block, and that moment when the sunlight hit your floor just right. No one claps. There are no fireworks. But something inside you softens. You cook a meal just for yourself. You plate it like you're the guest of honor, because you are. You play music in the kitchen, and for the first time in a long time, you dance, terribly, gloriously. You laugh when your back pops. You call it your personal applause track. You start noticing little things again. How your dog tilts her head like she understands heartbreak. How the rain sounds different on the windows since you stopped crying behind them. You go to a movie alone. The cashier asks, "Just one?" And you smile like it's a secret, because it is. A delicious one. Turns out, joy isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, like a favorite chair, or the feeling of soft socks fresh out of the dryer, or realizing you didn't check your phone for 3 whole hours and didn't feel anxious about it. And here's the kicker, your body starts to respond. Scientists have found that intentional joy practices can increase serotonin production and even improve immune response. Basically, choosing joy is like giving your cells a standing ovation. One afternoon, while you're tending to your plants, your son calls. You blink at the screen. It's not a birthday, not a holiday, just a Tuesday. You answer calmly. "Hey," he says, "I've been thinking about you." You smile, not because it fixes anything, but because you finally know. It's okay if the call comes or doesn't. You've already called yourself home. Later that evening, you light a candle just because. You eat dessert first. You watch the stars for no reason at all, and as you drift towards sleep, you whisper something soft. I am allowed to feel good, even if they don't notice. Because healing isn't always a grand declaration. Sometimes, it's a quiet refusal to wait for permission, so here you are, still here, still rising. Next time, we'll explore what it means to forgive. Not for them, but for your own heart, your own freedom, your own breath. You're watering your plants when it hits you. Not a memory this time, but a question. If I never get the closure, the thank you, or the moment they finally understand, can I still let go? You pause, hands wet with soil and sunlight. The leaves glisten like they've been listening to forgiveness. That old dusty word people throw around like it's easy, like it doesn't take all your strength to even consider. You sit by the window, cup of tea warm in your palms, and you let the thought settle in, heavy as it is. Here's what you don't do. You don't force it. Forgiveness isn't a light switch. It's more like a dimmer, and right now, it's just soft glow, barely on. You remember the way your daughter rolled her eyes when you asked her to visit. The way your son texted Kay after you poured your whole heart into 3 long messages. And still, somehow, the idea of forgiving them starts to itch under your skin, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Letting go doesn't mean letting them off the hook. It means setting yourself free from the chokehold of waiting. You whisper to your tea, "I'm tired of being angry." Fun fact: trees under stress, like drought or damage, communicate through their root systems, sending chemical signals to warn others. Some even send nutrients to struggling neighbors. Biologists still debate if it's conscious or instinctual, but it proves something. Even nature doesn't hold on to pain forever. So why should you? You take a sticky note and write, "I forgive you, not because you asked, but because I won't let this weigh down my joy anymore." You fold it in half, place it in a book. Let it become part of the paper, the story, the quiet. You still feel it sometimes, the sharp little jabs of remembering. But now, they don't draw blood. They just remind you how far you've come. You practice tiny acts of release. You stop replaying old conversations in the shower. You stop checking their social media for clues they've grown. You let the unanswered text sit there without grief. You even say it aloud one night brushing your teeth. "I forgive you. I forgive me too." It's clumsy, awkward, but real. Forgiving yourself. Now that's the twist no one warns you about. Forgiving yourself for overgiving, for shrinking, for calling when you should have rested, for trying so hard to earn love that should have been given freely. But here's where the power starts to return. You realize this whole time, you weren't asking for the impossible. You were asking to be treated like a human being, with care, with patience, with dignity. And now that you've given that to yourself, it's not so devastating that others didn't. You find a new ritual, a simple one. Each time you feel the bitterness creep in, you say, "That chapter is finished. I'm writing a new one now. No dramatic music, no big scene, just a steady hand and a pen that doesn't shake as much anymore." One evening, you get a message from your daughter. She says she's been reading a book about boundaries. Says she thought of you. Says sorry if she ever made you feel unimportant. You smile. But here's the most magical part. You don't need it. You appreciate it. But you've already done the work. You've already cleared the garden. Her apology? That's just a little sunshine on soil that's already blooming. So tonight, as you settle into bed, you feel something unfamiliar. Lightness. Your breath is deeper. Your chest isn't tight. Your thoughts don't circle back to wounds. They float, like clouds, like peace. And tomorrow, we talk about legacy, not the one you left behind, but the one you're starting now. You're sitting on the porch, sipping something warm, watching the sky bruise from pink to gold to quiet. And it hits you, this chapter of your life. It's not a leftover. It's not some postscript. It's the main story now. You think about all the time you spent chasing validation, holding your breath for affection that trickled in like someone else owned the faucet. You think about the years you lived as an afterthought in your own life. But now, you're the author, and the pen is finally in your hand. Legacy. Not the kind they carve into stone or stuff into a retirement album, not measured in honors, or family reunions, or the number of framed photos on someone else's mantle, but something quieter, softer, deeper, like the way your neighbor's kid looks at you when you wave every morning, or the small herb garden that survived because you whispered encouragement to it when no one else was listening, or the playlist you made called Songs That Saved Me. That's your legacy, too. Researchers say emotional memories last longer than factual ones, meaning your kids may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how they felt around you. That cuts both ways, doesn't it? But you're rewriting that feeling now. Not for them, not to fix the past, but because you deserve to live in a story that feels like home. You start leaving traces, quiet fingerprints of care. You write notes to yourself and stick them on the fridge. You made it through everything they thought would break you, and you're allowed to enjoy things even now. You make a playlist for mornings and name it Still Here. You organize old photos, not to wallow, but to reclaim. You even start telling stories again, not as warnings, but as warmth. You tell your grandkids how you used to cry in your car in the Target parking lot, then walked inside like nothing happened, and still remembered to get the almond milk. You tell them about that one time you learned how to unclog a drain using only YouTube and willpower. You tell them about the joy of finding a shirt that fits just right, even after your body has changed shape 27 times since your 20s. These little moments, they matter more than you think. Because your legacy isn't just about who remembers you after you're gone. It's about how you remember yourself while you're still here. Some days you still feel that ache. The old ghost of being ignored, of being reduced to a chore list or a guilt trip. But you no longer take the bait. You don't spiral. You light a candle. You hum something soft. You tell yourself, I am not waiting for someone else to celebrate me. I am the celebration. Experts argue whether legacy is a matter of biology, culture, or choice. Some say it's passed through blood. Others say it's built through behavior. But you've decided it's built through being. And you, dear one, are still becoming. You start smiling more in photos, even the unflattering ones. You send voice notes to friends just to say, hey, I thought of you today. You learn how to crochet, or make sushi, or sing karaoke badly but with conviction. You reclaim the kitchen, the garden, the mirror. You light up your corners of the world, not because anyone asked you to, but because the glow feels good on your own skin. And late one night, as you tuck yourself into bed, you whisper, I did enough. I am enough. And the story goes on. You don't need to be remembered perfectly, just truthfully, just kindly. Just as you really were, a little broken, a little funny, wildly patient and brave enough to heal even when the world wasn't watching. So, rest now, not in defeat, but in peace. You've earned it. You always had. Let the night be gentle with you. And now that we've walked through this 10-part journey together, maybe you're breathing a little easier. Maybe your shoulders have dropped, your jaws unclenched, and for the first time in a long time, you're not holding your breath waiting for someone else to see your worth. Because here's the thing. You see it now. You face the silence. You face the eye rolls, the K-texts, the awkward holidays where love felt like an obligation. And yet, you stayed gentle. You stayed you. You learned how to build joy in small rooms, how to make peace in noisy minds, how to forgive without an apology, and how to turn grief into compost and grow something beautiful from it. You didn't get bitter. You got better. And that, my friend, is your quiet rebellion. You're not here to chase their respect anymore. You're here to enjoy your mornings, to reclaim your laugh, to be your own legacy, not for applause, not for likes, just because it feels good to be free. So, if you've ever felt forgotten, please know this. The most important person hasn't forgotten you. They're here right now, listening, healing, becoming, and that person is you. So light a candle tonight. Pour a little something you love. Put on that playlist called Still Here. And smile, because you didn't wait for them to come around. You came home to yourself. I'm proud of you. Thanks for walking this road with me.